Welcome to Stout Conversations, where every week we sit down with creative thinkers in the craft beer industry and beyond. Your hosts, Ken and April, live and work in a 24-foot RV, traveling the country in search of great stories around a great beer. This week is all about connecting travel to craft beer, and Andrew Moore, former archaeologist and current owner and brewer at Intrepid Sojourner Beer Project in the heart of the Santa Fe Arts District in Denver, does just that. With beers such as a Turkish Coffee Stout and a Basil IPA, Intrepid Sojourner encourages everyone to become fearless travelers, even if you never leave the brewery.
All right, so Andrew Moore here at Intrepid Sojourner Beer Project, which that is basically kind of a fearless traveler.
Yeah, but we're doing things that I think are a little bit experimental, a little bit different, and so the project, as opposed to like brewing company, kind of gave it that feel for us.
Yeah, I can see that definitely, because though you're a brewery, you guys are kind of pushing the bounds a little more than your typical craft brewer, even here in Denver, where there's a lot of creativity going on.
Yeah.
You're taking it a whole different direction with this, and it kind of all plays into this theme.
Yeah, so a lot of the places, we talk about our beer as kind of being culinary-inspired international beer. So for me, it was getting the opportunity to go overseas and just being exposed to like all of these new flavors and foods and menus that were so different from what I was used to, and just sort of falling in love with that. And so I thought, you can bring some of those flavors back in a way that people appreciate. That's kind of exciting for me. So that kind of led to a lot of our early experimentation when we were still homebrewing in between grad school classes and things like that. So,
well, and that's kind of a pretty interesting story, I was going to say, is how your travels came about, because it's not like you just traveled the world and found these things. You have a pretty interesting background for a brewer, really.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, people ask a lot. They're like, well, how did you go from classical archaeology, which is what I was doing, so this Greek and Roman archaeology? So how'd you go from that to beer? And the joke is sort of like one pseudoscience to the next. But it was, I did have the opportunity to travel over the summer. I came out to Colorado in 2010, and I would for graduate school. And in the summertime, I would go mostly to Turkey in the Eastern Mediterranean, and I worked on a survey archaeology project there, the Central Lydia Archaeology Survey. And it was essentially a late Bronze Age, so about 1200 BCE site. The entire survey area is about the size of the state of New Jersey. So being in Turkey, it was just so friendly. It was so different than, sort of the initial expectation. Right? We're in like rural Turkey, and it's all farmland. It's tobacco and tomatoes, olives, and there would be days where we wouldn't get any work done because people were so nice, and they're like, come into my house and eat these cherries and drink this tea, or drink like 80 cups of tea every day.
So where did you discover beer?
The only beer, there's really only one beer in Turkey. It's called Efes. Okay. And it's this light sort of, domestic lagery. Turkey is a predominantly Muslim country, and so there's a lot of beer consumption, but almost no beer consumption in public.
Right.
Outside of major metropolitan areas like Istanbul or something. But empty beer cans just appear in the trash can, but you never see anyone.
Never see anybody going.
But not a lot of good beer. But it was the flavors, right? So all of these spices, these curry blends, and the different harissa and ras al hanout, and all these different spice blends from Turkey and North Africa and other places in the Middle East that they're using in the Turkish cuisine that were just kind of mind-blowing.
Right, a lot of stuff that we've never even really been exposed to much, unless and that's even a deep dive in the culinary scene in the United States to get into those spices and those flavors. You have to really kind of be seeking out some very ethnic foods instead of your typical restaurant food.
I think so. I mean, not all of our beers, I think, are quite that exotic, but it is kind of a different cuisine, and in a way, I wanted to kind of expose people to cuisine from that part of the world, because the time period that I was going there, and still 2008 to 2012, it was kind of a scary place in a lot of people's minds, and so the more that you can expose them to ideas from that culture or cuisines from that culture, kind of helps, I think, potentially remove some of that fear.
Right, it kind of bridges that gap between these are just really scary people to they're just people like us who happen to be in a different part of the world with some different circumstances. And but at the end of the day, we're all people trying to do the same things for the most part.
Yeah,
trying to get by, make a life, be happy.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, it's very different. I won't say that, but it's not. There's that idea of, again, kind of bridging that gap. Hopefully, Colorado is a great place for craft beer.
Right.
So craft beer seemed like a possible way to make that happen. But yeah, I mean, coming from Indiana, so I grew up in the Midwest, and the flavors were just so different from anything that I had ever tasted. So it kind of blew my mind that way. I'm like, oh, you can put all this spice in food, and it can be kind of intense, right? Because that's the other thing about cuisine, even like outside of Indiana. It's like American cuisine, we tend to dial back the flavor a lot of times, and then the Mediterranean and the Middle East, a lot of places, the spice blend in that particular dish is what it's about. So that was one of the funny things. It's like when you're in Turkey, they eat a lot of meat, and you just order meat. And you're like, well, what kind of meat is this? And they're like, it's meat. And it's just, it's funny to go back and forth between, Colorado, where you go to these places where they want to know like the name of the chicken, and then you go to Turkey and they're like, well, it's meat. I don't know. It's goat, it's lamb, it's probably both. Yeah.
So what were some of the first beers that you dipped your toe in, bringing some of that flavor and spice and everything over back to the United States to expose people?
So some of the first beers.
And this is really cool. There's a really colorful profile of beers.
Yeah,
there,
you get some purple and some clear and some dark. So we got a couple of kind of early beers that started out as homebrew beers. So there's the Turkish Coffee Stout and the Basil IPA. Turkish Coffee Stout is one of my favorites. It's a type of stout called a foreign export stout, which was brewed in England to export. So it was a little bit higher alcohol, it was a little bit hoppier, and you would often get a little bit of like tropical notes off of the hops that were used. So they would hold up better for transport's the idea. So again, I think a lot of our beers are maybe a little bit stronger, like in that 6 to 8% alcohol range, because it kind of balances out the spices, the strong flavors. So Turkish Coffee Stout is Turkish coffee, and green cardamom, and then sweet orange peel. A couple of things that are unique about it, but one thing is it uses a Robusta coffee. So there's two types of coffee, that sort of general branches of coffee, right? Arabica is like 85% of what we consume, and it's that like kind of nutty, roasty, sometimes burnt flavor that we're all kind of used to.
The majority of what Americans drink.
And then there's Robusta coffees, which make up a much smaller portion of the total coffee grown, and a lot of it's grown in Brazil and India, and they're like much like dirtier, muddier, earthier.
Kind of an earthy flavor.
Yeah, flavor. And then the Turkish coffee is generally mixed with some cardamom. To kind of give it that little bit of spice. And then when you boil Turkish coffee or Arabic coffee, depending on where you are, you usually add a bunch of sugar. Because when you boil it, it's a big coffee to water ratio. They add a bunch of sugar, especially if you're a tourist.
Almost like distilling beer and making whiskey.
Yeah, so we did a sweet orange peel instead, and then some dehusked grains, so it's a little bit less bitter, and the orange peel just kind of softens it and kind of rounds it out on the back of your palate. So it's not so much that you're going to get an orange flavor, it's more that you would notice it if it wasn't there, right? It would be like more astringent, kind of more tannins on the back of your tongue without the orange peel.
Do you mind if we taste it?
Yeah, go for it.
I know we're kind of probably not going in the taster's Bible order.
I don't know. We should call it something else here, like story order. I love the smell of the Turkish coffee.
Yeah, and that flavor is actually really nice. Like you said, very earthy.
Yeah,
and it doesn't have that burnt, smoky smell that, like most stouts in the United States, that have that really dark coffee flavor.
Yeah,
it's usually that Arabica type coffee, based coffee that is burnt and smoky. But this is something a little different, which is what you kind of built yourself off here, is to try and do something a little adventurous, kind of playing into the name again, just being adventurous with your beer, not just saying, we're going to make a stout, we're going to make a robust porter.
Yeah, and I think travel too. Like one of my favorite things, and I've seen this happen a couple of times, especially with the Turkish Coffee Stout. It's like people will come in, they sit at the bar, they order a Turkish Coffee Stout, and they're like, "Oh, this reminds me of 6 years ago when I went to Istanbul," and they start like talking to the bartender about their trip to Istanbul, and that's like the big win for me when like the beer actually like creates that sense of that memory. Right?
And here, do you see that you kind of attract that here? That you have a lot more worldly people kind of coming to your brewery because of the name, and then, or maybe they've stopped here, and then it's like, wow, this is pretty cool. It kind of had that association with people, that connection to the rest of the world. Or?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I'd love to think of it as kind of like Colorado. We're always talking about mountain climbing and base camp, and I'd love to think of it as kind of like an international base camp. Where you do feel comfortable coming and sharing stories or planning a trip.
The bar is made up of topographical maps.
Yeah. So I think we've tried to encourage that. And
you even gave it already. I mean, you're only a year and a half into being open here, and you've given away a trip to China. Yeah, that's part of a promotion.
We've got a couple of people going to China, and drink some beer, and you could go to China or India. We got a guy and his wife that just won a trip to India, so they're going to be going before too long.
Excellent.
So it's been a lot of fun, and so hopefully we can continue to kind of encourage that and build that more into who we are. In a little bit it's been kind of it's nostalgic for me, right? I feel like opened this brewery based on international travel and exploration, and I don't really leave the building.
So what else do we got going on here? Because I really think these beers are so unique that it started with
Basil IPA. So it turns out basil and hops are actually very similar.
Okay.
And so you get a lot of that kind of characteristic hop bitterness from the stems and flowers of the Italian basil, and that's where the basil. So we use an Italian style of basil. We get it here locally from Colorado Aquaponics, but again, it was being in that kind of classical environment. Had a lot of friends going to Italy, a lot of basil in most Mediterranean cuisines, and so I said, I think this is a flavor combination that might work well if we do the hops right. Columbus Magnum, Citra, Centennial. So it's a great IPA, I think, for IPA drinkers and for people who aren't IPA drinkers. We get a ton of people that come in and say, I don't normally like IPAs, but I really like this beer. And we get a lot of IPA drinkers who come in and kind of appreciate that it's different.
It is interesting because I get that sweetness, but it's like an herbally sweetness. Yeah. Which you don't know. Like most of the sweetness you get in a lot of IPAs in America are some sort of citrusy.
Yeah, it's citrusy, or generally, if you're tasting sweetness in beer, it's residual sugar. Mm-hmm. Right? So you might expect just a Russian Imperial Stout or some of these bigger beers with a lot of residual sugar to have a kind of sweetness. But this is, I think, a nice balance.
That almost plays like a saison to me. Maybe because of the herbalness to it. Yeah. But I do get the hoppiness too that you don't normally get in most saisons.
Yeah, it's been interesting to me. I mean, playing with these ingredients, right? So we use fresh basil that's usually picked the day before, and the oil content in every harvest is a little bit different. So the basil profile in every batch is a little bit different. And we've experimented kind of with different amounts of basil, and do we just use the leaves of the basil, or do we use the whole plant of the basil? But that's kind of one of the fun things about this too. Again, going back to this idea of like beer project, is like it is kind of an experiment, and there's no calculation for how much basil to put in the beer, and so
where are we going now?
So
we're hitting the color wheel.
Yeah, kind of in reverse order, but that's all right. So chamomile. This is our chamomile wit.
Okay.
So this one was actually
a good one to have right before bed, so you can sleep well.
This was actually inspired by another beer we had. My wife and I went. She wasn't my wife at the time. We took a road trip in Western Colorado, and kind of before all the craziness that was the brewery, and we stopped at this great brewery in Telluride called Smugglers.
Okay.
And he had a chamomile beer, and we loved it so much that we bought like growlers of it, packed the car with it, took it around the rest of Western Colorado with us.
Cool.
And so I said, we want to kind of do our own chamomile beer. And so, yeah, it's a wit, which is orange peel and coriander. It's kind of a Belgian style wheat beer. Sometimes a little bit on like the tart side.
Right.
But then the chamomile kind of lays over that. So I think especially the coriander and the chamomile go really nicely together. Okay. And it is just, I don't know, kind of like a great calming, relaxing. I know we're not allowed to claim health benefits for alcohol, but
holistic benefits.
It's holistic.
It's very holistic.
Yeah. And the last one we've got here is the Refajos, or the Refajo Colombianos. So this is actually kind of like a shandy.
Yeah, that looks like wine with a little froth on top.
Yeah, so we have a good relationship. A friend of mine has a brewery down here on South Broadway called Dos Luces.
Okay. And
he does all chicha and pulque, which are like South American, Central American corn-based alcohols. Do a non-alcoholic version of the chicha called chicha morada. Then it gets this wonderful color from the purple corn. So he imports Peruvian purple corn, and then we blend it with our lavender triple, which is another one of kind of our early Mediterranean and inspired beers. So there's a lot of lavender in sort of the northern Mediterranean, southern France, northern Italy, eastern Spain.
So it's kind of a traditional Belgian triple base.
Yeah, so it's a traditional Belgian triple base, and we add just a little bit of dried lavender into there. Again,
lavender is another one you can go crazy with.
It's really easy to make the beer taste like soap.
Yeah, we've done that as well.
We run a 7-barrel system here, so that's finished volume size of about 217 gallons per batch, and we use 6 ounces of dried lavender in 217 gallons, and that's plenty.
Yeah, I like that approach, and that beer is very interesting because you look at that and I think probably almost any beer I've seen that looks like this, or even close, which I'm not even sure if I've seen one too close, but I would probably think it's going to be a sour or a wild fermentation.
Yeah, I would have some kind of blueberry or raspberry or something like that.
Yeah, because of the color, I think.
And the color all comes from that purple corn.
But this actually drinks really nice. It's a little sweet, but it's got definitely tastes the lavender and maybe some like nutmeg or something.
Yeah, so the chicha morada is boiled with cinnamon, clove, and lime juice.
Okay, so that's that kind of earthy, kind of
almost like
spice.
It's
a really cool approach that you guys have at the brewery, and I think it really should open up some minds. If people come through here, I mean, it's amazing. The different styles. That
the other thing we're trying to do is get our beer in front of a lot of food. I think it goes really nicely with food. So we over the summer we did kind of a whole series of beer dinners with really great chefs from the Colorado area.
Oh, that's excellent.
And put the beers, with their cuisine, and try and push the beers into some of those caliber of restaurants, because I think it's a really nice way of talking about pairing. It's not just like, should I have an IPA with a hamburger, but like, what do I have with this fantastic 21-day dry-aged, Wagyu steak from the urban farmer downtown or something like that. So with these additional flavors, like it really, I think, puts us in a cool place to be able to play with beer and food.
It's almost like the wine culture, Beer is progressing to this level where it's a pairing now, that you didn't ever see before. Even when beers had big heydays, now it's like taking that next step where it's evolving even more on more micro levels, I think, than ever.
Yeah, and I think it kind of has to. I mean, beer is a weird industry, I think. I mean, what other industry are there 7,500 businesses that all have like 80 different products?
Yeah.
Right? And how do you differentiate those products, and how do you make room for yourself in a field of, 80,000 different beers?
You go out there and you don't make what everybody else is making.
Yeah.
You bring the whole big world into this small little space. And
absolutely.
So our brand is Living a Stout Life.
Sure.
And kind of similar to Intrepid Sojourner, living a stout life to us is something like living with a more purpose in your life and with just living with intention. But we like to know from the people we talk to, what would be your idea of what a stout life is, living a stout life?
Yeah, so, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is sort of, I suppose, living a full life. And I feel like, so far, Intrepid Sojourner is part of that. Started as an archaeologist, spent some time, climbing big mountains, and now I'm brewing beer. And it's been kind of an adventure, and it's been a unique opportunity to kind of look back and connect those dots to how did you get from here to here to here, and who are the amazing people that helped you, and the community that coming in and drinking the beer, or working with you in the Middle East. So it feels like it's full, and it has that purpose, and it's also, I think, giving something back. I mean, that's one of the things that attracted me to craft beer in the first place, is like the sense of community that's not just in the tap room, but amongst the other breweries, is really inspiring. And it's been a really unique opportunity to learn from the other brewers who have been doing it longer, or doing something better than you are, or that kind of thing. And everyone's very open and friendly and helpful.
That is a pretty unique thing in the craft beer industry, and I think it's pretty exciting to see, just the way that, and just aside from sharing your knowledge with each other, helping the outside world, outside communities. Like, I know you guys were part of the Resilience IPA project from Sierra Nevada, and I think all that comes together, and I like that stout life answer there. So with that, I would say cheers.
Cheers.
There are new episodes with new conversations every Sunday night. Be sure to subscribe and click the little gray bell so you don't miss out. We'd love to hear from you, so please leave us a comment below. Not only will this help us get found in the search engines, but it will also help us create a better experience for you, our viewers.
The voice behind the camera said I missed a question.
I missed a question. Oh, I missed a question. Okay.
It's a very important question.
You should have let us finish the cheers. That's right. Now we got it rolling.
All right.
Okay.
That doesn't look.
Yeah, that'll be a bloopers.
There you go.